recipe for great food is simple. Make it fresh. Wings to go in Greenville, where every order is a custom order made with fresh ingredients. Wings to go, 7818 Wesley Street in Greenville. Simply great wings.
Need a part for the right price? Look for that red and blue sign. Henley Auto Supply at 1510 Stonewall. Over 800,000 CarQuest parts to choose from. Domestic, European, and Asian parts. Henley Auto Supply at 903-455-1969. 455-19...
If you would, please bow your heads. Dear Lord, I pray over this meeting. I bless our agenda, let it to be fruitful for the common good, and that we are able to listen with our hearts and our minds. Father God, I also grant and ask for wisdom over every council member and our mayor. In Jesus' name I say this prayer, and I thank you. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the next thing we have is a presentation, and the city manager is going to read a certificate of appreciation. Summer?
So if I can have the Waste Connections people kind of come on up. I'll read this for y'all. So, whereas Greenville citizens are served every day by public servants, the unsung heroes, who do certain vital jobs that keep our city working, and whereas day in and day out, these servants provide services to our community that are required for the continued health and safety of our citizens, and whereas during this most recent severe ice and snow event, the employees of Waste Connections rallied to provide the necessary sanitation and recycling services for our community. And now, therefore, the City Council hereby recognizes the ongoing dedication and perseverance of the employees of Waste Connection, as well as the value of service they continue to provide. In testimony whereof, witness my hand this, the 9th day of March 2021, Mayor David Driley. So thank you all very much. We appreciate it. So thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. We appreciate y'all.
We appreciate everything you guys did. I know it was cold out there, and I don't envy you at all, but thank you very much for everything you did. Summer, thank you. All right, next item, citizens to be heard. Citizens to be heard are invited to address the council on topics not already scheduled for a public hearing or listed on the agenda. Present your completed citizen's card to the city secretary. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes and should conduct themselves in a civil manner. The City Council cannot act on items not listed on the agenda in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act. Concerns will be addressed by the city staff. They may be placed on future agenda or addressed by some other course of response. Mike, when you come to the microphone, please first state your name and your address. Carol, do we have anybody?
John Kelso.
John Kelso, 6005 Horn Drive. I wanted to talk to you about the $50 million bond because you're asking us as citizens to determine is that a good idea or a bad idea and vote accordingly. Of course, a lot of this depends on how many roads can we do for $50 million. If we can do, 6 miles of road for $50 million, maybe it's not a great idea. If we can do 100 miles of road for $50 million, it's a great idea. So the cost, the number of roads, I hope, those are two extremes that are absurd, but I hope you recognize that the cost of doing a road is integral in us deciding whether we think it's a good idea or a bad idea. Now, the administration has told y'all that it's about $3 million a mile to do a total reconstruction, and I don't know if you know where that number came from or if you guys have vetted that early or what, but that's an important piece. I would encourage you to thoroughly vet that $3 million per mile number because that has a lot to do with how many miles are we going to be able to do. Is that a national average, a state average? Who cares? What does it cost in Greenville to reconstruct a road? Well, we just did Stonewall. I've driven that new part twice with 2 different cars. It's about 0.72 miles. I understand it's been about $3.1 million for that. If you do the math, that's $4.2 million per mile. And that's just recent. That just, you hadn't even finished it yet and all the costs isn't in. 4 or 5 years ago, we redid Wellington. That's about 1.1 mile. I would bet dollars to donuts that it cost $3 million to do Wellington back when we did it back then, 1.1 miles. So that's far more than $3 million a mile. We just passed a bond a year ago, $13 million bond to reconstruct Sale and Stonewall. That's about 2.2 miles of road for $13 million. That's about $6 million a mile, not 3. So where did the 3 number come from? We just passed in November a $6 million bond to redo. You're going to vote on it tonight. The Dent Road extension. That's about 1.2 miles. And we approved a $6 million bond. That's well over $3 million a mile. So where does the $3 million a mile come from? You guys ought to look at that and vet that and see, is that really accurate for Greenville? You've got plenty of, you can look at Stonewall. We redid both ends of Stonewall. We've redone the south end of Sale. That's only 0.36 miles. Look at the cost of what it costs us to do those and figure out, is $3 million a mile really good? You need to nail that down so that we'll know, how many miles we're really talking about we're going to get for $50 million. And probably the best thing to do is put it on an agenda and discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Betty Franklin.
Ready?
Good evening, Betty Franklin, 1811 King Street, Greenville, Texas. I guess I'm another person up
Betty,
here.
move over in front of the microphone.
Oh,
Thank you. And you can pull it down. There you go.
okay. I got it. Okay. I guess I'm another person talking about streets. I been planning to do this for a while, just to take pictures to show you the condition of some of the streets in the North Greenville area. And I did a 2-block radius today, and the streets are really in bad condition. And I think you had mentioned, if I just let you know, that you can fill up the holes or something, because right now some of the streets are in really bad condition. Were you able to see the?
I did, yes.
Okay. I know you can't answer on anything like that, but please consider that.
We'll get them on.
Those streets are in really bad conditions. Okay, next, I want to talk about when the freeze came, and a lot of our plumbing, a lot of our lines are out, and we still have water problems, and we need repairs done to our houses in the North Greenville areas. But the main problem is we're running into shady contractors. I know that,
Betty,
again,
you said what kind of lines are out?
water lines, sometimes it's on our side, it's on our end, but we have to hire plumbers to come in. We have to hire electricians to come in and look as well. The problem is, and I know you can't do anything about it, but maybe you can think about it. We're getting a lot of shady contractors coming in, taking advantage of the senior citizens. And most of us in my area, we're on limited income, we're on Social Security, and we've been ripped off. It's heartbreaking to see people give out their hard-earned money for shady contractors to come in and take advantage of us, me included. I'm just wondering if the council, either some department of the city could develop a program that we can look at have a list of decent certified contractors that we can look at and consider. But right now, we're getting a lot of shady people, and they're really taking advantage of us. And we know there's no recourse, but maybe could be a list. Well, we can go look at a list and call individuals. But right now, people are approaching us, and it hasn't been turning out really good.
It's dipped up.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty.
Uh-huh.
Larry Ellis.
Thanks, Betty, for lowering the microphone. I appreciate it. Larry Ellis, 8555 Larry Court. It takes big ideas and leadership to solve problems. I compliment y'all for voting to put the bond, major street bond, on the May ballot. This is going to be awesome. This is our chance. We have a chance now to get ahead of the curve on our streets. This is an amount of money that we can do something with. And I agree with Kelso. I understand. We want a deal. We want you guys to make sure that who you bid this out to, we don't want another Trader's Road. We want you to bid it out to somebody that we're going to get a deal and we're going to get a good road. So I'm going to spend about $6 million on streets and infrastructure for sure in 2021. So I'm going to do it in the neighborhood. Y'all are going to do it, or hopefully the citizens will vote for the approval of this, and we can make a major dent in the next 3 years on the roads that we need to start our city in another direction on how our streets are. And the last few years has been great. The 15 million, that was great. You know, we're doing it. We're starting to edge that way. But this is our chance. This could be the big gorilla that changes everything on streets. And we have money coming into this city like crazy. You're getting checks from builders, and it's doubled up what we were paying years ago. You're getting money, okay? It's coming in, okay? And even though you guys have really done a great job keeping our property taxes low, but guess what? We still get those envelopes in the mail where the appraisal district, it pops us every year, and we write them a check for a bigger amount of money. And I think they told me that I paid more property taxes for individuals than anybody in this city. okay, which is fine. I'm happy for it. This is my home. We live here, and we're happy to do our part. But I am hoping that we can have just a new direction, and that our next council that we have is going to think about our employees. We need to give our employees a raise, and a raise to make up for the fact they didn't even get a raise last year. You didn't give them nothing. And we have all this new money that is coming into our city. Sales tax has been great. Maybe the storm is going to mess us up for this month when it comes in a few months from now. But overall, our sales tax has been going through the roof, the collection that you're receiving. And you're getting all this permit money that's coming in. So guess what? If our employees are our most important asset, let's think about that, and let's make sure that when the people vote in May for the new people that are coming in, our new mayor, our new city council people, let's hold their feet to the fire a little bit, and let's give our employees what they're due so that they're happy, they stay with us, and we don't have turnover, and we're always having to train new people. Okay? We have a town that is moving forward. Let's all get together, and let's make this just an incredible place to live in the next 3 years, because our city is going to explode with growth. It's going to.
Thank you. John? John Turner? You're supposed to recognize your name even though you're not a council member anymore.
Well, I appreciate that. No, I just wanted to come up and
Your
say,
name and address, please.
as soon as I get to that point, just wanted to say that I am John Turner, that I live at 3702 Pepperport Drive in Greenville, Texas. And this ice and snowstorm that came in a while back seriously destroyed Sale Street, and I called upon Summer, and it was a short time. The holes and caverns were filled in. However, they didn't last very long, because it only took a couple of 3 days, people driving over them, that the potholes are even worse than they were to start with. Some of them are still pretty dangerous. I don't know, it seems like they were filled in with just gravel-like stuff that they drilled up from another road bed. But anyway, I appreciate it, because first time I drove over one of those holes, I thought I'd lost my whole front end. They were really bad. And I know it's due for reconstruction at end of spring. And I sure hope end of spring gets here real quick. Now, I've also been promised for, this is 3, 4, 6 years. I'm not talking about you. The previous city manager, that we would get striping to differentiate the lines on Lineslayer Road, so people know which way they're coming and going and which way they're supposed to turn. And that hasn't happened. I was also told by someone quite recently that they would put down the markings on Sale Street so that people know which lane you're supposed to be driving in. And that didn't happen either. It wasn't summer. So, the sooner we can get Sale Street fixed, the better we're going to be off, because there's still got 50-mile-an-hour people driving down through there, 60 miles an hour, still hitting the same bumps or trying to avoid them and running all over people. I would appreciate the sooner we can get it done, the better. And I thank you all very much, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
That even includes my brother over there.
It was coming. It was coming.
All right, that concludes our citizens to be heard. I'll close that. We have no public hearings for tonight. Public testimony. Public testimony occurs when citizens are invited to address the council on topics already on the agenda. Speakers will be invited to speak at the time of the council discussion for the item. If you haven't, please give a card to your citizen's comment card to the city secretary prior to speaking, and speakers will be limited to 2 minutes for each agenda item. First item we have up is Ordinance 7A, consideration and action on ordinance authorizing the donation of used bleachers. Summer?
Yes, Mayor. I was approached by the athletic director at Greenville Christian School to ask if they knew of any bleachers that they had. They were looking for seating for their baseball and their softball fields. And so I talked with our Parks and Rec director, and did he know of anybody around here or anything that we had? And he notified me that actually we had 4 sets of bleachers that used to be at Reese Davis. And then when we did the remodel in 1920, we no longer utilize those. We now use chairs around
In 1920?
2019, 2020, when we remodeled everything. Not 1920. 2019, 2020.
We did remodeling a lot.
Yeah. Anyways, and so after we took those out after that remodel, they were just located at the sports park, weren't needed at that location. We're just holding them there now currently. And so since Greenville Christian needs these for their baseball and softball fields, they plan to put 2 at the baseball fields and 2 at the softball fields. We thought we would hope that you guys would authorize the city to donate to the Greenville Christian for those fields.
Anybody have any questions? Any comments? Any citizen wish to comment on this? Public testimony is closed on that. Nobody has any questions. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, Brent,
Bleakers?
Cedric,
What are bleakers?
and please vote.
Sorry.
And it passes 7-0. Next item, consideration and action
I
on
did not
ordinance
hear who.
authorizing the purchase of 4 variable
hear.
frequency drives for the water treatment plant. Press?
Thank you, Commissioner Mayor. Yeah, this is at our water treatment plant. We have 3 high service pumps. Another one y'all just authorized last meeting. But these variable frequency drives allow these pumps to work at optimum efficiency. They ramp up and down as the pressure, as the demand goes. And it's a really critical part of our water treatment plant to get the finished water into the distribution system. So this is why we're asking these drives to associated with these pumps.
Does any council have any questions for him on it? Anybody from the public wish to speak on the subject? If not, I'll close the public testimony period, and if there's no questions, I will entertain a motion to approve. All right, Al, Kristen. And it passes 7-0. All right, next, consideration and action on an ordinance authorizing a professional service agreement for the Roy Warren Parkway Road Extension Project. Press?
Yes, sir. This is a professional services agreement with the engineering firm Bartlett and West to do the design work for the Roy Warren extension. It includes the roadway and the utility, the sewer service that we're hooking into it also. This is essentially a road from scratch. As y'all know, it's a dirt road right now. Y'all did pass the bond issue for that, and what we're trying to do is get this road designed, ready to go to construction to meet the constraints of the bond issue.
So this is just a plan for the overall thing. It's not the actual work.
No, it's the design of the whole road system for it.
So it's the design and plan.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for him?
I have a question.
The bond was approved in November, early November, and I'm surprised that we're just now getting to the design. Is that, what went into this process of bringing this ordinance
We
forward
had
us?
went through an RFQ process to get engineering firms to submit on it. Then we had to go through analysis of those, and Bartlett and West came out to be the #1 ranked firm. And then as soon as that was done, then we sat down and negotiated a fee with them. That was what we thought was a very reasonable fee and time schedule. And that takes time to go through those sequences and then bring it to the commission. We were going to do it at the last meeting, but it got canceled, so everything got slipped
Okay.
to this meeting.
Al?
Chris, how many people responded to the RFQ, and
I think we had either 4 or 5 firms responded.
do we have a ballpark timeline for this project now? You know, start
Yes,
to
sir. We
finish?
should, I think the design will take somewhere around 6 to 8 months, and we'll be able to go to construction after that.
We're looking the end of the year to turn dirt.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right, I'll open it up for public testimony. Anybody wish to speak on that? Nothing heard. Public testimony on that is closed. I will, if there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve. All right, Jerry? Kim? Please. Cedric, you disapproved? Okay. Pass 6-1.
Thank you.
All right, next is consideration on an action. Consideration and action on an ordinance selling city-owned property located at 2507 Jordan.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I had an interested party, an adjacent property owner, approach the city about purchasing 2 lots which currently belong to the city of Greenville and are utilized for parking. So it's a local business that wishes to expand. And so once we did that, got with Daniel's office and went through the proper procedures, had an appraisal done on that property, and then put it out to bid in the newspaper 2 separate times. We had 1 bid on it. The only bidder on this property was 2400 Johnson Street, LLC, and they bid $10,100 on that. So we would like to be able to accept their bid and sell this property to them currently. It's a property that they wish to expand. We'd put back on the tax roll. We currently don't receive any revenue from this property for this parking lot, so we think it would be good for the city.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Al?
I mean, you said both these lots are currently public parking,
Correct.
and do we know how many spaces we're roughly going to lose?
I don't know an exact number, but I mean, if you'll see the photos, probably, I would guess 10 to 15.
The reason I ask is part of the comprehensive plan process that's going through now. What some of the recommendations that are going to come forth is to increase public parking off Lease Street downtown in the revitalization effort. And I'm just wondering if we have any plan to create some additional replacement public parking, or whether it's a wise move to eliminate these many spaces in proximity to the courthouse.
I don't have that answer for you right now with the comprehensive plan. Obviously, it's not complete yet, as it's in draft form and we should be seeing it. So, if we're eliminating these, we can certainly look for other avenues to increase parking in those areas. But this was just, if you look at the pictures, it just looks like that they'll utilize, from my understanding, in talking with them, they would not eliminate all of the parking spaces. They would just want to expand into a portion of the parking. So, and I can't tell you how many that would be, but I can certainly find out if that's something that would help you make that decision.
In the pictures I've seen, I haven't seen the place full of cars all the time. In the pictures I've seen, there'd be like 1 or 2 in there. I don't think that it impacts, 15, 20 people. It may, but I've never seen those parking lots full.
Well, Mayor, I know during we've had citizens show up numerous times saying during the event downtown that parking's, I raised the question.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Is it just the plan to, is there a plan to actually expand some kind of business there? Or is this just going to be, and it's going to continue to be a parking lot? What are the plans for expanding?
My understanding, of course, I haven't seen any physical plans, but the property owner would like to expand their operations into a piece of that parking lot.
So you'd expect that they might build a building there?
I would expect that they would extend their current building into that parking lot. Their current operations right there off of Jordan Street. That's my understanding. Now, I haven't seen actual plans on that because this was the first part of the process for the property owner to go through, so.
You disclose what type of business it is?
It's the adjacent property owner, Land and Winery,
What's the current zoning of that property?
commercial.
Any other questions?
I share Al's concern with losing parking spots. If we're going to be doing any kind of downtown expansion, it's going to cost us a lot more than that to build a new parking lot somewhere else. Now, that parking lot itself needs some work, and but I obviously want to be as accommodating to Mr. Landon and other businesses down there as we can, but I just want to make real sure before we start giving up prime spots. If you go down there, not as much now because of COVID, but when court is in session and there's jury pools and such, it's hard to find parking downtown anywhere. And if we want to create, some nightlife and things like that, there needs to be well-lit, well-signed places for people to get to, and this is just one block off of Lee. I'd just like to hear more about what the plan is before we give up on it. So I'm not really a no, but I don't know enough to know.
Anybody here that can talk to the planned expansion?
I did not see them.
Okay. Any other questions?
No question, but I do think the city should keep city property. And if this is, well, we know it's city property, we need to just go make it look better than what it is.
I'm sorry.
I said we need to go make this property look better, this parking lot look better than what it is since it's city owned. So I think we should set a standard on what the parking lot should look like if we have the money.
Well, city council can authorize funds to do that. Certainly could.
Yeah. I'm not in favor of giving up the city parking lot.
Any other questions? Anybody from the city, any citizens wish to speak on this issue? None heard? Any other questions on this? That depends on who makes the motion.
Second.
Okay, Christian makes a motion not to approve.
I'll second.
I think Cedric did already, didn't you?
Yeah, I probably didn't speak up loud enough. Second. Al.
So not to approve it.
So a yes means
So a yes means not to.
So a yes vote means that you're saying, I agree not to approve it. A no vote means you don't agree. And it passes 6-1. All right, next item. Consideration and action on an ordinance authorizing a temporary emergency revision to the water leak adjustment policy. And our council group met on that, and Al, I think you were the lead on there, so.
No, Brent.
You've got the lead on that, so you want to brief the council?
I'm sorry, I was looking down and reading my next thing.
You're
So
reading
which one?
your
Yeah.
emails instead of,
Which one is it?
this is on the water leak adjustment policy.
Oh, okay. Well, I would say that I think Summer needs to present that. We met for about an hour last week, and talked about some things that we could do to help the people who have dealt with water leaks out of the snow. But it was staff's recommendation, and I think it'd be better for her to present it.
Okay, so like Brent said, that staff brought this forward in working with Juice to be able to help. We were assuming that we would have an increase in the number of water leak adjustments that the city currently has. We currently have a water leak adjustment policy, and so we've listed that here in the packet. There's a few things that go along with that policy, but in order to streamline that process and to be able to process those in a little bit faster fashion and maybe make it a little bit simpler for the customers, there was three main points of that policy that we would like to suspend at this time. So the three of those policies would be to qualify for a leak, you cannot have received one within the last 24 months. Customer must complete a leak adjustment form and submit the form and proof the repairs were made. Proof of repairs, either a copy of the plumber's bill or a signed affidavit that the owner or someone else made the repairs. So in working with Juice, we would like to suspend those three policies above and temporarily change the process as follows. When the customer calls to request a leak adjustment, the customer service representative will note on the account and issue a service order for billing to do an adjustment based on the current process. Because some customers may only have had 24 or 25 days of running water, we may have to prorate a daily usage to arrive at an adjustment amount. Like I said, we worked with Juice. I think Alicia's prepared to answer any questions from the billing side of it. Obviously, you guys understand that the city employees don't necessarily do the billing portion for that water. And so if you have any questions, we took it to the subcommittee, the policy subcommittee, to get their input before we brought it forward to you guys. And so this was the recommendation that they ultimately decided on, that they were okay with. And, we went back and forth. There was some back and forth between the subcommittee and staff as well. And they can ask those questions or make any revisions that they needed. But Juice and both city felt that this would be the easiest process to follow moving forward for those water leak adjustments for a 3-month time period, 3-month or 90-day time period, in order to catch those people that truly did have a leak, and we'd like to give them a break.
I think everybody ran extra water just trying to keep their pipes from
Sure.
breaking. And people have had major catastrophes as far as, excuse me, as far as water main breaks and what that's done to the interior of their house and things like that. Is there a possibility that instead of saying, okay, you got to prove this and everything else, that we could bill everybody just like either last month or what they paid in February instead of coming up with a change in the policy?
Would you like to
Is
answer
that a possibility?
question?
And
We'll talk to the bill. She's in charge of billing, so I'll let her answer that question. I would say yes, but I'll leave it up to her.
So we did discuss whether or not, what the best options would be. And substituting usage for last month would require a true up on the meter read. So it would actually be a fairly complicated process to try to process, there are 9,000 residential water meters. And so to process each one of those manually and go back and true up those reads to move forward would be more difficult than what we're proposing here.
so if you, just to say, instead of paying a penalty for the water pipes that were broken and dripping and all the stuff that they did, in order to say, pay the same amount you did a year ago or pay last month or something, that's more complicated than going through this thing where somebody's got to apply and provide proof and all that?
It would be because of the true-up process. So we would have to essentially make 2 adjustments instead of 1. We do the process that we're proposing here aligns with the current water leak adjustment process and policy. The only difference is it would waive the 24-month interval where customers who've had a water leak adjustment in the last 24 months would be able to file a claim for the period of this event. And then beyond that, it's just waiving the documentation. And the reason for that is really that can be a cumbersome process for customers. If they make the repair themselves, they have to get an affidavit. That affidavit has to be notarized. And, for customers who work out of town, sometimes that's difficult to get back into town in time to get that notarized by someone and sent in. Also, in the case where there are renters, sometimes the landlord, and typically the landlord will make that repair, and renters sometimes have difficulty getting those receipts from the landlord, but they're the ones paying the water bill. And so on an ongoing basis, we manage those situations and we work with customers. But, as Summer, one of the items she reported on was 600 calls for water shutoffs due to water leaks. And that's the concern. I have 3 employees in billing to manage over 10,000 water meters. And we're asking for this waiver for the residential.
Al?
Alicia, to build on what the mayor was saying about people running water and everything, some of the surrounding communities, in Rockwall, an example, their council passed a ordinance to give every residential account a 2,000 gallon credit. And how they did that was right now our base charge includes 2,000 gallons, correct? They made a computer adjustment to raise it to 4,000 for a one billing cycle period. And that way it took all the muss and fuss out of it. I would think it would be easier on the billing staff and everything else if we just gave all residential customers 1,000 gallon credit on their bill and, for running or leaks or whatever. And with our current rate at about $380 per thousand, I think the total cost to the city would be $45,000. I don't know if that would be something.
So if somebody, the way that this is proposed, that they call in and request a leak adjustment, but they don't have to bring any proof, correct? With the new adjustment, new proposed temporary thing?
For adjustments filed within that window, that exception would be for a 90-day period. And the reason for that is sometimes, customers will have a slab leak. It may not be apparent on their first bill, or they may not get down to customer service, and they may be on auto pay, and that first bill goes through and they don't notice it.
So how do you verify that they really did have a leak?
Well, in this case, you would not verify. What you would do is look to see if there was increased consumption over what we compare to as the same month of the prior year.
As the prior year?
Yes, sir. So we would compare current February consumption to, for 21 to February consumption in 2020. And the difference in additional consumption would be billed at the production rate so that the city recovers the cost to produce that treated water.
Any other comments, questions?
That just sounds like more work. I'm with Al, with whatever, was it Rockwall, Raw City?
Yeah.
Dude, what do you think about what Al was talking about? What's your take?
Rockwall just credited each one of the residential customers 2,000 gallons for one billing cycle. And it was a simple computer flip of this, transaction.
Yeah, I don't know what it would take to accomplish that in our billing system. But obviously Juice will implement whatever the council approves.
It seems like that could be overly generous to some people and not enough for other people. I mean, if you have a leak and you leak 10,000 gallons, let's say, that $2,000 credit is something, but it doesn't fix your problem, while somebody that didn't have a leak is just getting a lower bill. That's kind of like the stimulus checks that go to everybody, whether you need them or not. And I think I I think if Alicia's saying, hey, this is a way that we think we can accomplish the purpose, and not overtax the staff, then that's what we want to do. Help those people out whose pipe's busted, but not make it a nightmare for the juice billing staff to administer.
But I guess my thought was, the reason I asked about just go to a different period is, all of us ran water, and depends on how much you had it drip or anything, and that kept part of the water flowing, which helped keep pipes from freezing more than just your pipes.
Right.
So I just thought that as far as, they spent a week with all their faucets dripping or things like that. And so if you only give credit or give adjustment to somebody that's had a leak, we're ignoring the people that tried to protect the city and tried to protect their property. Of course, our water pressure went down because of all the usage, but
I
I
think
don't know, it's not an easy solution.
your system is probably the fairest, but it sounds like it would be very, very difficult to implement they'd have to go one by one through 10,000 accounts. But I mean, I agree with you, it seems fair.
Yeah, that was my thought of just giving the next amount of gallons and just going ahead and crediting every account. It's probably simple. Make that credit, and then anything over and above that would be the residential responsibility.
But we also may not be looking at 9,000 accounts that have to be reviewed. It'd only be those that are filing,
Well,
if we go with the mayor's option.
So you would have to look at each account in order for billing. If we said just pay the amount that you did before, that requires your 3 people to look at all 10,000 accounts?
That is correct. If, under the way, under the changes that we've proposed, the only accounts we would review are the accounts for the customers who come in and request an adjustment. And this resets that adjustment period. So if they come in and request an adjustment and that adjustment's granted, they're not eligible for another adjustment for 24 months. So, it's not likely that someone would come in who just had a slight increase in their water bill over what they would expect.
Alicia, are your billing folks being inundated with requests so far?
Not so far, and that's because of timing. Right now, we just issued Cycle 1 bills last week, and those will be due this week. So we would expect to start to see that uptick in requests coming in, because customers typically don't come in with a request until they get their bill and see the difference in their water usage.
Any other comments? Anybody from the public wish to comment on this?
Staff and all this kind of stuff. We went through a terrible time in our city for a week, and a lot of people didn't have electricity. People that didn't have the money to get their pipes, fixed. They were running that water, trying to keep their pipes from freezing. Like, come on. Al had a great idea. Maybe it needed to even be a little bit more. The mayor has a good idea. You mean in all this world of software and technology, we can't have a program that goes back and sees what somebody had paid before, and that program will calculate that and put that in the system? There has got to be a way to have, the next time we have something bad happening, do we want some lady who's struggling on Social Security to be worried about turning her water on to keep her, because she'll go, oh my God, my water. I mean, let's think about the people, okay? And let's help them. And the system, I understand what Alicia's saying about them having to go and reset everything and go and look at everything to set everything and get it back to true. But I think Al's suggestion totally solves that. But I understand what Brent's saying. is that Ellis is probably going to get something for free, and then somebody else is, something like that. I get it. I understand all that.
All your well-built houses didn't freeze and
Well,
flood.
I'm going to throw this in there.
No, we're not going to have advertisement.
Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, just read the newspaper and you'll see how it worked out for us. So anyway, the good news is some people did go and turn it off and disconnect the line, and yeah, they figured it out. But the bottom line is, let's think about people that were worried and they left it running, and let's help them. Give them a break. Let's do that.
Any other comments from the public? Public testimony is closed. Any other comments from the council?
I'll make a motion. I think that will maybe resolve this, but to take staff's recommendation, but add Al's $1,000 credit to. I'm sorry, 1,000 gallon. Jeez.
I'll take $1,000 credit.
I'm sorry, 1,000 gallon credit to the bill, and also for any leak adjustment that happens during this time period to not count against the person's 24-month leak. Does that make sense, Alicia? Yeah. So that if they get a leak here, we're not going to count that against them in their leak adjustment history.
I'll second.
Okay, so just to repeat that long dialogue, I think what you made a motion to is that we would grant all of the people a 1,000-gallon adjustment as far as their base amount. Instead of being 2,000, it would be 3,000. And then the people that had, you were saying what on?
People that have demonstrated leaks will go through the process that Alicia outlined to say, to get an adjustment.
And use the old or a new leak adjustment process?
The new one that's just been proposed.
All right.
And
Brent
then
made the motion.
And then third, that it would not count as a leak adjustment on their history.
Then
So you're saying follow the current procedure we have right now on file for the leak adjustment, plus do the 1,000 gallon, give them 1,000 gallons, plus what was the last one?
Okay, so right now you're only allowed to go to juice one time every 24 months and say, hey, something's wrong with my pipes and I had a high bill. Okay, and that's because some people just need to get their pipes fixed instead of coming up in with a leak adjustment every 2 or 3 months. That makes sense. But this is an event where it didn't matter how good your pipes were. Everybody knows that there was a major event. It's not in most cases, anything that a person could have controlled. So I would just say, let's not count this against them. If 3 months ago or 4 months ago they had a leak, let's not say they're not eligible for this one because it happened within 3 or 4 months ago. Or if 3 or 4 months from now they have another leak, let's not say they're not allowed to get an adjustment because they already got one this time. Does that make sense?
It does.
And then on the rate that we would credit the 1,000 gallons, is that, well, the first 2,000 is that standard rate, and then like if you go for the extra, or if you go in to get the adjustment, that is charged at a different rate, correct?
Yeah, if we've got somebody that's got a 1,000-gallon adjustment and he comes in and asks for relief on a leak, what kind of an adjustment would he get?
What we would do is look at that consumption from February of 2020. We would look at what is in excess of what their consumption was on that bill for 2020. That would be billed at the production rate. Whatever consumption is above that prior level would be billed at the consumption, I'm sorry, at the production rate.
So that 1,000 gallons, is that at consumption rate or production rate?
It's just going to be added into the base rate. So
That's going to be base rate. So
Okay.
I'm not sure what that first tier is below 800 gallons.
I can tell you with a 3/4 inch tap, anything over my 2,000 is at 38 cents per 100, which is 3.80 per 1,000. So it's $3.80.
Okay.
but basically, everybody is charged a certain amount for water if they use 0 gallons or 1,999. So we're just going to bump that up to 1,000 and say that first 1,000, we're not, I mean, that from 2,000 to 3,000, we're not charging you extra for that, right? We're
So
just
the
going to include that.
1,000 gallons free spin on the meter.
Including that in the price, right?
Well, it just shows up as a credit, right?
Right.
Really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's for one billing cycle only.
Can we not just reset the 24 months for everybody also, along with the 1,000 gallons that we're talking about?
The 1,000 gallon is just for a 1 month.
Just 1 month.
1 month. It's not from now on.
I know.
It's a 1 month thing.
It's about resetting the
Resetting
24-month
24-month
calendar for everybody.
For everybody, along with the 1 month 1,000 gallon credit.
I think as Councilman Money proposed the motion, this would not count towards that 24 month. Is that
Right.
what you were asking?
That's right. So
That's not what I was asking. That's probably what he's saying.
Okay.
so what are you
So
trying?
are you saying for every water customer, could we reset the 24-month? Just basically say everyone on the system now
Yes.
can receive this adjustment,
For the next 24.
and then anytime during the next 24 months can file another adjustment. If the council passed the motion, we would implement.
They would or would not be able to, for the 24 months, they would be able to get an adjustment.
Just trying to simplify everything to make it to where you just start over completely with all the customers. The 24-month period started in the
So
next month.
there would be no water adjustments for leaks for the next 24 months.
No, he's saying anybody that comes for the next 24 months
Can apply for a water
can
adjustment.
get an adjustment, and then that starts their new 24 months. So in other words, if somebody shows up in July or August and they need an adjustment, and they already got an adjustment last June or July,
Yeah.
they'd still be
I'm
eligible.
basically saying start the 24, start it over next month for everybody,
For everybody.
all the residents.
You're saying this month doesn't count at all, but also start over the 24 months? Okay. Yeah, I mean, Brent can revise his motion to include that if you, unless
I'm
there's been
glad
a
he's going to
second.
revise the motion because I'm not sure where we're at right now.
Well,
Daniel's going to help.
Yeah.
That way you
I
just
don't know
go
if
in
there's
there and
been a
make some,
second.
adjustments and it's done. You got, it's 24 months starting over all the residents. You're done with that, and then you have the $1,000 gallon credit for everybody, and we're finished. Anybody come in from now on can get their, start over from day one, basically. Just trying to simplify it, because it was a bunch of,
I think what he made the motion on, at least what I wrote down, is that if they required a leak adjustment now, that the previous limitation that within 24 months did not apply, so they could go ahead and get it if they had one last year.
But
But
let
he
me-
did not propose that if they wait 6 months or 8 months from now and then come in, that it starts all over at that time.
Yeah, so let me ask this, Alicia. How is it noted on your system if somebody has had a leak adjustment in the last 24 months or whatever it is?
It's a field that's noted on the customers.
Okay, and so if we were going to reset everything to this month, somebody would have to go through and actually reset that pretty much to this month.
Right. We'd run a report
Yeah.
and go in and reset all of those
Right.
customers. Our CSRs can do that.
I think, and I think
Well,
I'll,
as they're processing
right.
requests for water leak adjustments.
Right. I think I'll just leave my motion where it is, and you need me to restate it? Okay, one more time.
Let me see
The
if I've got it. And then you can correct it.
Okay.
We would give 1,000-gallon adjustment across the board.
No. We would add $1,000 to the base rate.
That's what I meant, is add $1,000 to the base.
Gallons, not dollars. Sorry, now I made you do it.
1,000-gallon adjustment to the base value.
Yes, I'm trying to get
across the board.
$1,000.
And all bills will be forwarded to.
Right.
You're using too much water. If they have a leak, then it would follow, or a leak adjustment, it would follow the proposed that's in this packet.
Correct.
And that the fact that they don't fall within that 24 months, oh, I'm sorry, you had it a year ago, you can't get it, that part's waived.
Yes,
Is that the end of your motion?
that's the end of my motion.
But just to be clear, you're talking about just residential customers?
I believe that was the only thing we're talking
That's all that
about.
staff proposed.
Understood, but he said across the board. I'm just making
Okay.
sure that that's
Okay.
real clear on the
Yes.
I'm
record.
glad you clarified that.
Yes,
Thank you.
residential only.
Residential, okay.
Al, is that what you agreed to second?
Right.
Given that dialogue, please vote. And it passes 6-0. Carol, I'm glad that you've got all of this down. I'm sorry, it passes 7-0. Okay, we're into resolutions. 8A, consideration and action on a resolution for grant funding for interoperable P25 public safety radio system. Press?
Yes, sir. We've got the opportunity through our federal lobbyist, Josh, alerted us to these grants. And this is one of the first grants we've seen to give us monies for radio infrastructure. And so he helped us fill it out. We got the grant application ready to go in, but we have to have a resolution by City Council approving us to submit the grant application. And this is what that's here for today.
So it's just a matter that you're looking for our approval to say, yes, you can go ahead and submit a
Yes, sir.
request for a grant.
That is correct. This is part of a state homeland security type grant, and so I think it's a great opportunity for us to go after this kind of money.
This falls in the same category as we have to pass a thing to accept money on a grant that's given to us.
Just about.
Little strange for me, but anybody have any questions or comments?
Move approval.
Just, we have a
Yeah, oh,
public
I'm sorry.
testimony.
I'll open it to public testimony. Anybody
All right.
wish to speak?
Wayne Morris.
Wayne?
Wayne Morris, 5600 Vale Street, Greenville. I have 37-plus years in the experience in the design and implementation of both long and short-haul communication systems. Tonight, I would like to briefly comment on the city's initiative to upgrade the current communications network via 700 megahertz trunk radio system. This is seriously overdue, as to at least 15 years prior to this, when I was still working and we were racing out there. The city approached the company asking for help in figuring out what was wrong with their system or how to replace it. At that time, it landed on my desk. I did a study, recommended a trunk radio system to the city, but that's not a city system, a county system. Here we are tonight, hoping to get a grant unfortunately, just for a city-wide system. My understanding is other people, county agencies and other entities were briefed on this, asked to participate, all declined. I would ask that before we go forward with this grant, one more shot be taking people on board. The reasons being, we go to a 700 megahertz trunking system. Other agencies, to include the county sheriff, volunteer fire departments, are on VHF systems. While you can have some interoperability, it's cumbersome and it's more expensive to the city to be able to communicate to them. I would also like to be assured that this city system that we're asking for also includes the ETJ.
Include what?
The ETJ, the Enhanced Terrain Jurisdiction, Territorial Jurisdiction.
Go ahead.
Okay. Then my time's up, but we've got to look forward into the future. The city will eventually grow. If we have the single citywide system, it will end up handcuffing us in the long run. I congratulate the people who've worked diligently on this, but let's take one more shot to see if we can at least get the county law enforcement and fire protection on board. It does no good to have the super new system where we're handcuffed with our partners in the county not willing to participate. I don't understand why, because who says no to free money? Thank you very much.
Mr. Morris, the study that was done on this, I reviewed it very carefully. I asked a lot of questions. Things you brought up are already covered in there. It is a trunk system. The others can
Yes, I
join
know.
into it. It covers the police and the fire and the other first responders. So the system is a complete system, and it's geared so that the others can go in.
That's true. However, you have to add to the system, which costs more money.
The
My-
system is will be capable.
Yes, sir, I
of
know.
having them add in.
Yes, sir, I know. I've had 37 years' experience in this, and I know what a trunk system is because I installed one in the city of San Antonio.
Great.
All I'm saying is that I agree 1,000% the city needs to go forward. I'm just saying, before we sign the grant paper, let's take one more shot at getting at least basic county services into the same network right now. The whole purpose behind 7 megahertz trunking, Congress allocated 60 megahertz of the former analog TV stations to this, was so in the event of national disaster or emergencies, interagencies to include federal, state, and local could talk to each other. If you have somebody on UHF, somebody on VHF, and others on 7 megahertz trunking, and somebody else on 8 megahertz trunking, you've got the same clues you had with beforehand. I'm not saying not to go forward with it. I'm just saying, with the new change in the county sheriff's office and the county judges, why not ask them one more time? That's all I'm saying. I'm 100% for moving forward. Let's just see if we can build the expanded system now instead of down the road where it's going to cost more money and the federal money might not be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, we're only asking for permission to submit for a grant. There's
Right.
no guarantee we'll even get it. This is just a submittal process right now. We're not signing any grant papers whatsoever. We're just putting an application in, like numerous other cities and counties are doing. Hopefully, we'll get enough points on this to even qualify for the grant. So I don't see where the city's in any jeopardy. We just need permission from the council to actually submit for a grant review for the process.
Well, and as I understand, I think that's what Mr. Morris is saying. He's saying that we should go ahead and adopt this resolution, apply for the grant. But before we get to the lick log of implementing it, go ask the entities one more time if they'd like to
Absolutely.
participate.
Once
I
again.
believe that's what he was suggesting. 'Cause- 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 'c
And it's my understanding that the system has been coordinated with them and is capable of handling that, plus several other entities. That's the way that this whole thing has been set up and has been studied for the last 1.5 to 2 years, to ensure that everybody was a participant, could work with it, and do that. We're not going to go out and buy the county radios. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Russ, you got anything else?
No, sir.
Anybody else on the council have any questions?
Are we in a rush to, I understand exactly what Mr. Morris is saying. What would be the issue for these guys to go back and talk to everyone and see can we get a?
Unfortunately, the grant deadline for submittal is the 11th of this month.
So
We
that's
had
the-
hoped
so
to
that's
have
the-
this-
So you answered the question. I asked you, was it a rush on it? So
It's
that's-
been
you
worked
answered the
on, and
question.
we've been, this grant came out, we had almost like less than a 30-day clock to put it together. I hate to say it, I think the federal government does that on purpose to keep people from submitting for it. So we put this whole grant application together. The only part we're missing right now is the resolution from the city, but it is due on March the 11th.
Mayor, I move approval of Resolution 8A, and I want to thank Mr. Tompkins and his staff for preparing this grant in the short period of time that it was done.
Second.
All right, Jerry, Brent. Please vote. Passes 7-0.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Jerry, do you want to take this next one?
Well, yes, I'll be glad to take it, Mayor. The mayor, myself, and Councilman Money met. We had two vacancies on the Parks and Rec Board, and we're recommending Scott Ellis and forgotten the other name, Katie Bates, I believe. Is that right? Huh? Katie Foote, I'm sorry. Yes, Katie Foote, I'm sorry. Yes, I don't know why I can't. Okay, so there were two applicants for these vacancies, and so we accepted both of those.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? Anybody from the audience wish to speak on it? None heard there. I'll entertain a motion to approve the assignments of the two people.
move for approval. Second.
All right, so Brent, Cedric, please vote. Passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, next item, consideration action on a resolution amending measures to continue the prevent and the spread of COVID-19. Summer?
Yeah, Mayor, what you and council have before you tonight is the recommendations for city facilities going forward in light of the governor's order last week. So there's a few things that we've changed on there. Obviously, we've taken out the mask mandate that was recommended on there. So what you see on your sheet there is what is exactly on the executive order, where it talks about individuals and city staff are encouraged to wear face coverings when social distancing is not allowed. We've left the maintaining 6 feet of separation, which is social distancing when you're in city facilities. Obviously, we would prefer to keep city offices are open and public only allowed in designated areas. So basically, when a public comes in to provide a service, then we would obviously walk them through wherever they need to go to. So we are open, and that's kind of the way we've been operating thus far. We did change, we talked about, facilities being open 100%. So we talked about the library, Reese Davis at 100%, Civic Center at 100%, Airport Terminal 100%. Those were previously limited due to the order. We do have the Municipal Auditorium open at 100%, but I would like Kevin Banks to come up and speak to, he's talked to some venues since that order came out, so I would like him to come up and kind of address. Auditorium's kind of a different place than Reese Davis or the library or even here at the Civic Center, so he has some ideas and some recommendations to further help your guys' decision on this, so I'd like him to cover that.
Kevin?
Oh, thank you, Mayor and City Council. So I reached out to several other performance spaces in the area just to see what they were doing. The big ones in Dallas, like AT&T Performing Arts Center, American Airlines Center, they are moving forward exactly the same way they have been at very limited capacity, mandatory face masks, which you kind of expect that for venues those size. Fair Park Music Hall, they don't have anything even on their calendar until August of this year. I reached out to McKinney Performing Arts Center. They have nothing on their calendar right now either. So the one that I kind of like to compare us to is the Iceman Center in Richardson. If you've never been there, it is another municipally owned and operated facility, much larger than the GMA. They have multiple performance spaces and a huge staff, but they've taken a pretty methodical approach to reopening, and I really like it because I will tell you the very first question that we get at the GMA right now is, what are you doing to make it safe? How are you doing social distancing? How are you going to keep me safe there? So I came up with a plan to open it up to 100%, but do it in a more methodical way so that we can still accommodate people that want to be socially distanced, particularly while the vaccines are still rolling out, and we will get to 100%. So I'm going to show you. Made a little chart, if I'm doing it right.
Just roll it down.
There we go. Okay. So this is the floor plan for the Municipal Auditorium right now. Everything in yellow, which is the whole thing, is socially distanced. So every other row is blocked off. You have to maintain 2 empty seats between each party. We're at 25% capacity. So that gives us 251 people on the main floor, 118 in the balcony, and 369 total. Right now, masks are recommended, or we want to keep the recommendation to wear a mask, but I actually really want to leave that up to whoever is renting the venue. And to me, that's going to be their option for if they want to have that rule going forward. So my proposal is for the rest of the month of March, keep it exactly the way that it is. That impacts one show, and that is the Greenville Entertainment Series. And I've spoken with their board already, and they are fine with keeping it like that because most of their folks are going to be probably wanting to socially distance anyway. So next month in April, we'd open up to 50%. The way we do that, we'd still maintain socially distanced sections on the sides of the GMA, completely open up the middle section so people that are comfortable sitting together with mask or no mask is fine. And that will take us up to 464 on the main floor, 242 in the balcony, or 706, so we'd be right at 50% capacity. This will, again, only impact one show, and it's, again, Greenville Entertainment Series. So they're thrilled because they have a few more seats this time around. We get into May, we'd open up to 75% capacity. And again, in doing this, we open up one of the side sections all the way, the middle section all the way, and keep one other side section that's still socially distanced. So as more of the vaccines roll out and people get vaccinated and they start feeling more comfortable in getting out, we're still accommodating those that do want to be socially distanced, but opening up a lot more space. So at this point in May, we would have 1,100 capacity in the venue. We do have 5 events scheduled for that month. There's 3 dance recitals and 2 concerts. I've spoken with all of the folks. They're actually still thrilled because hopefully it's going to encourage maybe a few more people to come to the GMA that may not if we were just all open to 100%. No matter what, they're all getting a whole lot more capacity than what they got a year ago. And then finally, by June, we'd be 100%. Hopefully at that point, most people that want to be vaccinated will be vaccinated. We will have herd immunity, and people will feel a lot more comfortable about getting out. As far as the masks go, like I said, I want to keep that as up to the individual renter, whoever's running the venue. That's their prerogative. That's their choice for what they want to do. But I like this approach. I think we can accommodate people that do want to be socially distanced and those that are fine with not being socially distanced. But it kind of eases us into that 100%.
Oh, I have a question. Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and I do think that there's a lot of sense that this makes as far as, there's some people that want to be socially distant, some that don't. I get that. But if somebody came in tomorrow and said, hey, I want to have a concert, it's mainly for youth, and I want to do it next Saturday, which I know is unlikely or whatever, why not leave it up to the entity renting the venue on which one of these options that they would like to do, even at this point, and say, hey, we have a fully social distance option, we have a 50% social distance option, a 75% or 100% capacity option.
If that's what you guys want me to do, I can do that.
Yeah.
First of all, we do have a 30-day rule that you can't book within less than 30 days.
Well, if somebody came in with a big enough check, I bet that they would, but I don't
mean,
know of anybody.
You
but-
still have to consider us being responsible. I mean, and not
Yeah.
just, as a city facility. I mean, I understand what you're saying if they wanted to do that, but for us to still be responsible to our staff, I mean, we still have to have staff that work that. So, we, like Kevin said, we certainly could manage that if that's what council decided to do. We would have no issue. We would figure it out. But I think what Kevin is trying to do, and with all of our facilities, is just trying to be responsible to our citizens, and not just say, hey, here you go, let's have at it, type of deal. So we're just thinking about being responsible,
Right.
and not just obviously COVID has not gone away,
Right.
so we and not everybody's vaccinated too as well. So I think the responsibility as us to be able to provide a place that people can go that they feel comfortable to be at. So I think that's part of where we're coming from as staff, is to be responsible to our citizens, people that are coming, and to our staff as well. So we want to think about all entities when we're considering that.
I understand, and I do think, I don't think this is a, incredibly cautious approach or anything. It seems very reasonable. I don't think it's irresponsible for somebody to come in and a church group wanted to rent it out, or like I said, a youth concert with people who really COVID is not that much of a risk, or something else. But and it might be that the Greenville Entertainment Series says, hey, we really want to keep it at 50% even going forward, because people like the space, or still we're going to have another wave in the fall, or whatever it might be.
Right.
It's just
I think Kevin's idea is a good staging process that allows it to expand, because not everybody's vaccinated yet. Not everybody's going to be vaccinated next month. That's all dependent on how many vaccines get into Texas and how many come to Hunt County, et cetera, et cetera. So in my opinion, I think he's got a good plan that takes that into effect. I'm worried about people like the spring break. You look on the news and stuff, and nobody down there is wearing masks or anything else, and they're just saying, hey, doesn't bother me.
right.
And so my opinion is, I think what he's got proposed here is a good plan.
I really like his plan also, and I think, the governor can say it's 100%, but until people really get comfortable, I don't know how much they're going to come out. So
I've also got one other area that I'd like to
I'm
address
sorry.
on this, is the council, if we go to 100%, that would be, the option would be to go back to City Hall as far as our city council meetings. And in my opinion, we ought to give the council should give serious thought that this becomes the permanent place for for council meetings. Maybe not spread out as far as we are now, but allow for a bigger audience and a good place to park and things like that. But I think that following a similar type process that Kevin's saying, my recommendation would be that we don't go back to the smaller room over there in the GMA, at least for a while. As the new council comes in May, they can make a decision whether they want to stay here or whether they want to go back to that place. But my opinion is, at least between now and May, that we ought to continue having our city council meetings in here with the spacing that exists. Al?
I have no problem with the phase reopening in Kevin's plan, but I do have one question, and I haven't thoroughly read the governor's latest order, but didn't he order that public buildings open 100%? In the order, or did
I don't know if it specifically said
It doesn't
public
say, yeah.
buildings open 100%. I mean, I know I can tell you for sure the courthouse is not going to be open 100%. We had a long discussion about that today. That'll be subject to Andy Bench's order, which is definitely not going to be 100% open. That's different than what we're talking about, because there's a difference between what?
There was some, the governor gave some latitude between high incidence areas and not.
Yeah, that's not at issue. We're definitely in one of the lower ones, because we're with DFW in that area. We're nowhere near that area right now. What I'm talking about is the difference between executive branch and judiciary. That's the reason that the county courthouse is going to be completely separate. I haven't looked at it to determine whether or not he said specifically that all public buildings will be open, but I don't think that it said. What I do know is that it said 5 different previous executive orders are not going to be, they're no longer effective. They're superseded by this current GA 34, and 2 are not preempted, but he didn't say anything about all the rest of them. And so I don't know the answer to that. I would have to look at that more specifically.
I read it in the TML update, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I don't know if the TML update, the current, or the one that came out a couple of days ago, actually mentioned that specific thing.
As long as we're in compliance, the phased reopening is fine.
Yeah. Well, the way we handle it at the county, because there's so much gray area, is to basically just say, we're going to do whatever the governor says. And then as people come to understand what the governor meant more specifically, then that will happen. And so as far as the county's emergency order this morning, it basically said, here's the things we're going to do, but it's completely subject to the judiciary orders from the administrative district judge and from the governor. And we have a little bit of that too, because our municipal judge has separate power over the courtroom, specifically under the judiciary branch from the Office of Court Administration, which is part of the Texas Supreme Court. But I don't remember, without looking at that order, if the governor said anything specifically about opening all public buildings to 100%. I don't believe that it said that, though. I mean, one way to do that is to vote to approve whatever we're doing tonight, and then have the secondary part of the motion say, subject to the governor's orders.
I think this is 60 days only, so we'll be revisiting in April, the end of April.
Yeah. Well, everything's going to end is going to change potentially in April, because the governor's emergency orders are going to be becoming effective. They're not now, and so will the Office of Court Administration rules about various court buildings in town. So everything, I mean, just like since March of last year, everything changes every week or so. I just don't know the answer to your specific question right now. It's only a couple of pages long. I can look at that right now.
Well, I mean, it does say right here, in all counties not in an area with high hospitalizations as defined below, there are no COVID-19 related operating limits for any business or other establishment, which we're considered an other establishment. So it doesn't say anything about 100%. It just says there's no operating limits.
Yeah.
So, and they leave it up to the establishment if you want to open up to 50%, 75%, 100%. There's no limits by the state. So they basically, from what the TML follow-up after that was public buildings are considered the other establishments. So, yeah, that's what TML, and I can send it to you, but yeah, that came out like the very same day or next day that we read that, because that's what we looked at. Yeah, so, I mean, we could limit it, just like the same as a business can require you a mask, we could require a mask, or we could limit to 75, 50, whatever you guys decide. You guys could limit it if you wanted to further.
We just can't have the police enforce that.
Correct. Yeah, you just can't get arrested for it or fined for it or anything like that. So you can just be asked, I think in the TML it said you can just be asked to leave the establishment. So you just be, yeah, whatever, but you just couldn't charge them for anything.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody in the public wish to speak on this? I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
I second.
All right, Cedric. Kim?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, with,
because it's presented different, it's at 100%. With Kevin's plan,
talking about
whoever
Kevin's
made the
plan.
motion.
Kevin's plan,
Okay,
and staying here for at least for a while
Until the next city council.
until we
Till
figure
May.
out what we need to do.
Okay.
Okay?
so with Kevin's phase. Kevin's
Did
phase.
you get that, Carol? Okay, please vote. Kim seconded. And pass 7-0. Okay, next item is the consent calendar. Carol?
City council meeting minutes from February 9th. Ordinance canceling the general election for District 5 on the city council and declaring an unopposed candidate elected to office. Resolution approving a memorandum of understanding between the city of Greenville and Perkins Shaved Ice for concession stand services.
Anybody have any questions on this? Or comments? Anybody in the public have any comments on it? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as submitted.
motion to approve.
Cedric, did you make it? Oh, Tim did. Guys are competing, right? Please vote. Assuming I can hear. And it passes 7-0. Next, we have city staff, city council reports, and it'll be the financials from Talia.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This will be our financials as of January 31st. We missed our last meeting. Next meeting we'll be presenting on February. So this is as of the end of January, at which point we're 33% through the fiscal year. General fund revenues are in at 12.4 million, which is 47% of expected collections. Expenditures are at 8.9 million, or 32% of budgeted expectations. And that revenue figure, we do receive most of our property taxes in the month of January and February, so that's tracking right along normal. And then you can see our largest portion there on the revenue side is property tax, and then our largest expenditure is public safety. Sales tax, this is the year-to-date number through January. At that point, sales tax collections were up $254,000, or 9.24% compared to the same time, looking at year-to-date in the previous year. Down at the bottom, you can see our target for fiscal year 2021, and then our remaining sales tax to collect to meet that target is just over $5 million. This is looking at the city-only portion of the current period. So the city portion of the current period collections was $706,000 remitted for just the month of January, which was an increase of 7.26% compared to just the month of January in the previous year. So those are your November sales that get reported in December, and then we actually received that funding in January. Looking at the history of January sales tax, you can see a nice steady upward trend there, showing the net payment received by the city. Water and sewer fund revenues through the month of January are at about $4.5 million, or 32% of budgeted expectations, which is consistent with our progress through the fiscal year, so that's good. Hotel motel was an interesting month in January. We were tracking normally, and then January we took a pretty good dip of about 20% compared to January of the previous year. You can see the red and the green lines are 2018, 2019, and 2019, 2020. And your blue line is our current year, which is kind of a little bit decreased there. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, any is council discussion, proposed agenda items. Anybody have anything to suggest for us on the agenda? Al?
Yeah, Mayor, if we could, in the next meeting or two, could we get a status update on all our ongoing initiatives, like where the comp plan stands and the impact fee study and any grants we've applied or received, and, you know, the Sale Street start date, things like that, just the ongoing initiatives.
Well, I typically do a project update in March, so, which is 6 months into what we've already approved. So I was planning on doing that until the winter storm came this meeting, but I was planning on doing that next meeting, and I'll update us on all of our projects.
meeting, fine.
Is that okay? Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Moving right along, we have board and commission minutes. We have planning and zoning minutes from January 11th, 2021, and GBOD minutes from January 19th, 2021. Anybody have any questions on those? Okay, without further business, at 7:38, we will close the open session and the council will go to executive session. Thank you very much for attending.